The fall season. A time of change. The leaves are falling, the end of the year is almost here, and we have a whole new season to dig into. Now you might be wondering, what is worth watching? What should I skip? What are the answers to the final? And I'm here to answer all your questions. This season seems to be pretty straightforward. The big name anime are the ones everyone is going to be focusing on. You know, Bleach, Spy X Family, Chainsaw Man, My Hero Academia, etc. For this video, I'm not going to talk about Spy X Family and My Hero Academia because I've already talked about Spy X Family back in spring, so go watch that if you want to know more about it. And My Hero Academia has a very dedicated fandom for a reason. Both shows are good, but Bleach and Chainsaw Man, I do want to give some attention. Also, there are a lot of shows that kind of surprise me. I thought this was going to be one of those down seasons where there aren't any good seasonal content, but after watching some of them, I found that there were actually several that I enjoyed. A lot more than some of the shows from last season. Now, I didn't watch every single show coming out, so I might have missed a hidden gem. If I did, feel free to let me know about it, and I might make a video dedicated to it. So to start off, I want to talk about The Eminence in the Shadow. It starts out by following a girl named Nakane Nishimura, and it's not Nishimura! Huh? Oh, my bad. It follows Akane Nishitani. Wrong again! Wait, what? It's Nishino! Oh, okay. So Akane Nishimura is talking about... God damn it! So Nishino was talking about a guy in her class who doesn't even seem to really focus on people around him. More specifically her, and she hates him because of it. We learn a little more about her, and it turns out she's an actress, and something happened to her in the past that caused her to step away from acting for a bit. We also see the guy, Minoru Kageno, and he has wrist weights on, and he's doing the hand squeezing workout. I forgot what it's called, but he's done over 20,000 of these. We also see him studying the effects of nuclear explosions on the human body, and what are the limits of a human being. We then cut forward to nighttime, and we see Nishino's driver getting jumped by some guys. After waiting for some time, Nishino decides to walk home for the first time since her previous incident. We later learned that the incident in question was that she was kidnapped by an obsessed fan. Unfortunately, the first time she's walked home since the incident ends up resulting with another incident. She once again gets kidnapped, and while she's being kidnapped, she ended up seeing Kageno there. But she never brought it up, so I don't know if she did actually notice him or not. Anyways, one of these kidnappers assures her that they don't want to hurt her, and they're only after a ransom. The other one doesn't play along. He begins taunting Nishino by saying that it's not true, and he's going to have some fun with her. He then proceeds to continue to taunt her by saying this isn't the first time this has happened to her, and she was previously kidnapped by a stalker in the past, and he also had his way with her. Good news, this time someone came to save her. We see that Kageno had followed them to the warehouse, and he had some type of getup, and he broke in from the skyline, and he proceeded to beat the ever-living shit out of both men. Now, he did struggle, and he claimed that he doesn't have enough strength. At this rate, he will never achieve his dream of becoming the Eminence of Shadow. The next day, Nishino greets Kageno, and he actually remembered her name. He was actually looking at her. This led Nishino to figure out that he was also hiding his true self, just like her. And in that moment, he opened up to her a bit, and she was hoping to get to know him more, but then he ended up passing away. His death came as a result of him facing his greatest enemy, one of the most powerful figures in anime history, Truck-kun. Again, another hero falls before his time at the wheels of this unstoppable monster. And that's how this series ends. Unfortunately, Kageno never reached his full potential. You stopped at the credits, didn't you? What? Oh, okay, so now we get Kageno's backstory. Apparently, he wanted to be a hero ever since he was a little kid, and it was something he never grew out of. He continued to train in order to achieve his goal. Eventually, he hit a wall and realized no matter how hard he trained, he won't stand a chance against armed soldiers or even a nuke. That is, until he awoke in this new world of magic. Now he can finally become the Eminence of Shadow. This is actually a really interesting show, but it has major flaws. It lacks proper storytelling that lets you get absorbed into the world. For example, when he awoke into the new world, it sped forward a few years, and he suddenly had this slime that he can manipulate into any weapon or armor he desires. Don't know how he got it, but he has it. Don't worry, that doesn't make this show bad or anything, especially since it doesn't feel like this show takes itself seriously at all. Kageno ended up saving a girl who was turned into a blob due to magic overload, and he pretended to have saved her from a curse placed on her by a cult he made up. Later on, we learned that this cult actually exists. Everything that Kageno was BSing his way through to make his new organization was actually correct. So the series gives off an Overlord vibe with the protagonist not knowing what is actually going on. Also, the show has some really good foreshadowing, like the fact that the first episode follows the protagonist's classmate instead of him implies that she is going to be a part of the series more. I think that Nishino may also be reincarnated into the new world as his older sister. His sister is a highly skilled swordsman, but nowhere near his true skills. Kageno is a lot stronger, but he acts weak so he can hide in the shadow of his more talented sister. But there are some scenes that imply that she knows he's faking it, like when they were sword training, he quickly aimed for her vitals in an instant, supposedly without her noticing, but after she sent him flying, she touched her neck, which was one of the areas he targeted. Then later in the episode, she got kidnapped by the cult of Diablo, which the protagonist thought were ordinary bandits, because he made up the cult of Diablo not knowing they actually existed. When she was talking to the leader, she had mentioned that a lot of her skill comes from training with her brother, so maybe she knows he's faking being weak. But anyways, if you want a good laugh, this show is worth it. But the story really needs some polishing before I can consider it among the top tier of the season. Okay, so from that beefy explanation, let's go to a simple premise, with reincarnated as a sword. The story is simple. It's about a man who died and was isekai to another world as a really awesome looking sword. He had some amazing skills like telekinesis, which allowed him to fly around and fight without a wielder. He used his ability to go and find monsters to steal their skills. He's able to steal these skills by breaking their crystals, which is kind of like their core or heart. He spent months fighting the monsters throughout the forest and gaining new skills. He then settled down in a random spot with no monsters, and suddenly he could no longer use skills. Apparently the area he was in is a mana absorbing field, causing him to lose his mana whenever he cast a skill or spell. He ended up being stuck there for months until a black cat girl showed up. This girl is a slave who we see throughout the episode. She had wanted to become strong and evolve. Apparently the black cat species is not capable of evolving though, but she wanted to disprove that along with her parents. Unfortunately, her parents died before they could achieve their goal, and she was enslaved. Yet her drive to become strong and protect others was still strong. While her owners were traveling, they ran into a two-headed bear that nearly wiped out their entire caravan. The black cat only managed to survive because she had found the sword. When she picked it up and was registered as its new wielder, she became many times stronger, which allowed her to defeat the bear with relative ease. When the last slaver showed up, the sword used its telekinesis skill to break the man's neck and then burn the contract that was keeping her enslaved. They then teamed up to go become adventurers to help the girl, who we learned is named Fran, evolve. Since the sword doesn't have a name, Fran ended up giving it one. She decided to name it Teacher since he's training her to become stronger. Throughout their travels, Teacher learns that the black cat species are heavily looked down upon because they are weak and unable to evolve. Despite this, he helps her become an adventurer in hopes of achieving her dreams. Now, this series is far better in terms of storytelling compared to Eminence of the Shadow. There's good world building and development that makes you fall in love with the characters and draws you into the world. Nothing is half-assed or glossed over. The fight scenes do go by really quickly though, but they aren't poorly done. I'd say this is probably the best isekai coming out this season. But in terms of entertaining series, I'd say there are better ones out there. Moving on to the next series I wanted to talk about, Beast Tamer. It's about a boy named Rain who is a beast tamer for the hero's party. Unfortunately for him, the series starts out with the hero kicking him out from the party for being too weak. Apparently, Rain has no fighting capabilities and he's only good for scouting and carrying luggage, which instantly I became confused with. Both of those sound incredibly useful. Also, we see him taming a bear to help carry their things, and yet they call him useless and a hindrance? This made absolutely no sense from the get-go. This isn't the last we hear of the hero's party, but I'll get to that in a little bit. After leaving the party, Rain went on a quest to gather some herbs, and there he heard a scream. He went towards it and found a girl being attacked by a monster called the Killer Tiger. Rain noticed that there were no animals around for him to tame, despite there being a tiger right in front of his face, so he decided to distract it to let the girl get away. However, the girl stumbled to her feet and jumped into the air and stomped on the tiger, killing it instantly. Rain then noticed that the girl had cat ears and a tail. Apparently, she was one of the ultimate species, and not just any one, the most rare of the ultimate species, a cat spirit. And she was on the verge of starvation. She was so close to death that she had saw her grandparents at the other side. He gave her some food and made sure she was okay, then proceeded to leave. She followed him for a bit, and they talked for a while about their lives leading up to the moment they met. And then Kanade, the cat spirit, offered to make a contract with him. Rain decided to try it, seeing as how he is unsure if he can make a contract with an ultimate species. Kanade assured him it would work, because she has like a sixth sense that tells her that he can tame her. They ended up forming a contract and went to help Rain finish his quest. Now, it's important to know why Kanade was willing to make a contract with Rain. It wasn't just because of the fact that he could do it, or the fact that he gave her food. It was because of the way he treated her from the moment they met. He didn't view her as a golden ticket of sort. He saw her as an ordinary person. He had no ulterior motives for helping her or talking with her outside of it being the natural thing to do. Compared to the other people Kanade has interacted with, Rain was the most kind-hearted and down-to-earth person she had met, so she was okay with forming a contract with him, seeing as how he wouldn't take advantage of her. When they reached an open field, Rain made some temporary contracts with wild rabbits, which shocked Kanade. Normally, a beast tamer could only make a couple of temporary contracts at one time. Rain just made 20 easily, and he was giving them complicated commands which shouldn't be possible. Also, the fact that he already had a permanent contract with an ultimate species meant that forming other contracts should be close to impossible. When I heard this, I was surprised because normally a beast tamer can't form more than a few contracts, but Rain can form a dozen easily. Did the heroes party not know this? To answer that, no, they did not. We later learned that they have no clue what normal beast tamers were capable of, and they quickly labeled Rain as useless. But he's apparently the world's greatest tamer. So the rest of the story follows Rain on his travels with Kanade while they go around clearing quests. They even make some more friends along the way, like a dragonoid named Tanya. She's also among the ultimate species and had proven to be stronger than both Rain and Kanade. Also, something I forgot to mention. Rain is a skilled martial artist. He trained in martial arts so he could beat animals into submission without killing them. Literally, not joking. Then to top this all off, he gained strength equal to Kanade when he made a contract with her. So the more contracts he makes, the stronger he gets. So that makes his contract with Tanya all the more important. And the only reason he beat her is because Rain used a bunch of poisonous birds to paralyze her. Now this may sound like your typical horror ecchi anime, but surprisingly, it's not ecchi in the slightest. There haven't been any fanservice scenes early on in the series. It's still a harem though, but one that seems to be safe to watch at work. Now it does have a pretty serious plot with Rain trying to get over being kicked out of the hero's party and slowly regaining his confidence. But the show does have its goofy moments. It takes a break from the heartwarming and touching moments to sneak in a laugh here and there. The only downside of this series is the hero's party. They are so annoying, stupid, and also arrogant as fuck. Apparently everyone hates them because of how douchey they are. Even if they screw up, they have the nerve to put the blame on someone else and even threaten them so they don't tell anyone about it. Other than that, this is a really cool show that I do recommend to check out if you have the time for it. Next, let's quickly cover I've somehow gotten stronger when I improved my farm-related skills. It's about a farmer named Alwyn who wants to live his life out as a farmer. He has a blessing called Growth Promotion, which allows him to level up his skills more easily. As a result, he maxed out all of his farming related skills, granting him the Grace of Earth, which increases attack power over 73,000, which is way above the estimated power of a hero, which we later learn is 60,000. He then proceeded to kill a dragon and stop the princess from being kidnapped while simply delivering his crops to the capital, which sort of exposed his new OP-ness. He then stopped the demon invasion only to protect his crops and the place where he goes to sell them. So the series gave off a discount Konosuba vibe with how ridiculous the plot was. But the problem is that this show takes itself way too seriously. Like the leader of the demon horde, Romeo Vandez, seems to be a ruthless schemer and manipulator. Al did beat him, but it looks like he'll come back in the future. Then after Al became an adventurer, he runs into a malevolent black dragon, whose stats are over 230,000. So after that, there has been a lack of comedic farmer moments. So this series isn't one that I'm going to recommend, but it's not one I'll say stay away from. It might get better later on. Okay, so now I want to tell you about a series I actually thought was really stupid. And that is Shinobi no Itoki. It's about a student named Itoki Sakuraba who's been living a pretty strict life with a lot of after-school activities. He wants to go hang out with his friends, but his childhood friend Kosetsu keeps an eye on him so he doesn't skip out on his classes, which he didn't really trip about until he received a love letter from a girl named Satomi Tsubaki. He asked his mom if he can ditch some of his classes to hang out with her, but since he just met her, his mom told him to stay away from her. And of course he didn't, he just ditched his classes with the help from his uncle. He met up with Tsubaki, who then invited him to her house and stripped naked and threw herself onto him. He flipped out and was like, "Oh, this is a prank, isn't it?" He checked under the bed as a joke only to see someone hiding there. And then a knife sliced his cheek. Turns out Tsubaki was out to kill him from the get-go. A bunch of guys in all black uniforms began coming out of nowhere. And at the same time, a kunai flew in through the window and unleashed a smokescreen. His childhood friend Kosetsu showed up dressed in a similar black outfit and threw him out the window. And there were some other people dressed exactly like her. He recognized them as his mom's co-workers. They protected him from these masked assailants while he fled. He ended up running into a cop, and when he tried to explain what happened, a masked man showed up behind him and just slit the cop's throat right in front of him. They then tied up Itoki and threw him to the ground. Now this is where I had my first issue. If they were trying to kill him, why did they tie him up? Why not instantly stab him right then and there? Why waste the effort to tie him and toss him to the ground? If they wanted to take him as a hostage, why didn't they just grab him and go? Okay, moving on. After he was thrown to the ground, that is when his uncle showed up to rescue him. The masked assailants recognized him and referred to him as the demigod. So he was apparently a very skilled individual, and he displayed that skill by instantly identifying that the police officer lying on the floor was faking being dead. Which again, why? Why are they going through this entire facade for? If the cop is working with them, why didn't he kill Itoki the instant he saw him? Okay, so the next thing that happened was... oh yeah. Then Itoki's uncle suddenly got this black outfit that was similar to the other people who saved Itoki, and it just sort of phased into existence, kind of like he was wearing it the whole time, but it was just camouflage. We then cut to Itoki being taken to a temple and learning that he is the next head of a very powerful ninja clan called the Iga clan. Now, of course, he was shocked by this, and he was even more reluctant to take up the position. The moment he learned about the existence of ninjas and how he's the next head of a ninja clan, he started freaking out. It also didn't help to learn that his mom is the current chief, and she has been raising him strictly for this very moment, which, makes absolutely zero sense. If she had intended for him to become the next head, why did she keep all of this a secret? Granted, it is implied that she doesn't want to force him to take on the position, so she left him a way out. But if she hadn't intended to force him, then why was she so strict in raising him? If she had intended for him to have a semblance of a normal life, wouldn't she have allowed him more time to himself? Instead of going in one full direction or the other, she half-assed it and kept him in the middle where she forced him to do all of these after-school activities without telling him. These were training him to become a ninja. She literally didn't give him a chance to live a normal life and kept him in the dark about his heritage. The only way any of this would make any sense would be that the Iga clan was deceiving him into becoming the head, when in actuality, he isn't even connected to their clan at all. But that would be a very weird plot twist, and the author would have to jump through a lot of hoops to make it work. So there is no way that is what is going on. Honestly, there's a lot more stuff I could just rant about, but then I'd just be dragging on about it. So I'll just say the story annoyed me to the point that I dropped it 5 minutes into the second episode. I say don't watch it. There are better shows out there for you to watch. One of these shows is Human Crazy University. Before I talk about the premise, let me quickly address the elephant in the room. This show has a very unique art style that I actually liked, but a lot of other people will definitely call it ugly. It has very stiff movement and little animation, but the images themselves look fine. It's nothing mind-blowing, but I still liked it. Now, as for the story, it begins with us meeting a man by the name of Sataka Hirofumi who was just placed on death row. We see him enjoying the rest of his life in his cell reading books. He ended up befriending one of the guards who was recommending some books for him to read. The guard's name was Shimuda, and he didn't see Sataka as a bad guy, but it is known that Sataka was placed on death row because he had killed his fiancée and friend because he thought they were having an affair together. Despite that, Shimuda went out of his way to get Sataka his favorite food, sea bream sashimi, for his last meal. Due to extenuating circumstances, Sataka could no longer eat him, but since he was going to die, he wanted to have it one last time. When it was time for his execution, Shimuda was tasked with holding the rope so it doesn't sway, while another guard was tasked with pushing one of the 3 buttons that will hang the inmate. I like this little bit of world building. So to make sure no guard feels guilty for killing someone, there are 3 buttons that will hang the inmate. Only one of them actually opens the hatch. 3 guards push it simultaneously so no one knows who drops him. Little things like this always make me happy to see, because this shows you subtle details about how the world perceives the taking of a life. Even a death row inmate is still a human being, and no one should be forced to bear the responsibility of taking a life alone. So the 3 guards who push the button may suspect they are the ones who took the life, but they can never know for sure. Then came the time for his hanging. He ended up crying the moment he got to the platform. Up until that moment, he was completely calm and collected. Then he started crying and begging for them to spare him, which again shows us how people perceive death. It wasn't until he knew death was in front of him that he mentally broke. Either way, his execution was carried out. Or so we thought, because he wakes up in a random place with a doctor hovering over him. Turns out he had survived the execution, but the coroner checked him before he was cut down and he was labeled as dead. Now this doctor explains that Sataka has a strong neck, and that in the past he had even survived a murder attempt when someone spread a rope on a street to clip a motorcyclist's neck as they drove by it. However, in this case, his mistaken death was actually a result of his allergy to seafood, which caused him to go into anaphylactic shock. This stopped his pulse temporarily, causing the coroner to mistake him for dead. However, Sataka reverted from his anaphylactic shock, so the courts were deciding how to deal with his case. Apparently, this wasn't the first time a person has come back to life. There were other cases throughout history, and it was this man's job to study the extenuating circumstances to find the cause. Now, Sataka was a curious example, because this isn't the first time something like this has happened to him. He had survived an innumerous amount of life-threatening circumstances, from diseases like anthrax and smallpox to dangerous encounters with wild animals. However, Sataka can't remember any of this. He's suffering from amnesia. So the show follows his life leading up to that moment, as he recounts his extraordinary survival of the most deadly encounters throughout the world, alongside this man who is simply referred to as the Professor. This show is just riddled with world building and insane storytelling. I really think this is the sleeper anime of the season, one people dismiss at a glance and move on to another series, and they miss out on the diamond in the rut. So I can't recommend this series enough. I will admit there is another sleeper from this season, and I personally prefer the other one more than this one. But in terms of out there stories, I'd say Human Crazy University is way more unique. Now for the other sleeper anime that I enjoyed, it's Do It Your Serafu. And you have to say it exactly like that because the story follows a girl named Yor Serafu. Get it? You see the wordplay, right? The story is about her and her childhood friend, Tsurude Miku, going to different schools. Miku had hoped they would go to the same school, but Serafu's grades weren't good enough to get into Yu Yu's girls' vocational. So she went to its sister school, Gata Gata Girls High, which is actually in the middle of Yu Yu's vocational. Like, it has this really weird design where Yu Yu's is in a U shape and Gata Gata is inside the U. Anyways, Miku spends her day learning how to 3D print blood vessels for use in surgery, while Serafu learned about Emperor Marcus Aurelius Antonius. So it really shows you how different the curriculums are. One is looking towards the future and teaching kids new and innovative techniques, while the other is analyzing the past and reminding the students how this role came to be. Anyway, Serafu is a very clumsy girl, and she has been ever since she was a little kid. She'd always hurt herself while doing arts and crafts. So one day while she was biking to school, she got distracted and ran into a pole. Her handlebar got misaligned and the chain fell off her bike. Fortunately, a senpai at her school was passing by and she fixed her bike for her. Before Serafu could thank her or even get her name, the senpai left. When she got to class, she asked her new friend Hikage Takumi if she knew anyone like her. Takumi could only think of one person, Yasakure, who apparently had some nasty rumors about her. Like, she's known to be violent and short-tempered, and if she gets mad, she will chase you around with a hammer. Serafu went to her shack in the back of the school to thank her. She did get a bit jump scared when she saw her hammering in a nail next to the door, but she stayed and even helped her senpai screw in a nail for a bookshelf. Only problem was that Serafu couldn't handle the drill. She scratched the bookshelf and flew back, which resulted in her bumping into a stack of wooden boards, which then fell on her. Later that night, Serafu was thinking about how her and Miku had been growing distant lately, and maybe if she had the bench in her backyard where they used to hang out when they were kids, then maybe they can be close again. She went to ask Ray if she could borrow some materials to make a bench, only to find out that Ray is the president and only member of the DIY club. The club is on the verge of shutting down unless Ray can get 5 members before the end of the semester. Luckily for her, she got Serafu to join on a trial basis when she got her to screw in the nail for her. Ray had asked Serafu to officially join the club, and Serafu wasn't sure at first, but after thinking about how she can make the bench for her and Miku, she saw no reason to hesitate and joined. And so the story of how these girls go on to recruit more members and save the DIY club begins. Unfortunately, they spoil who the other members are immediately after that moment, and no, Miku doesn't look like she's a part of it. So sad. It sucks that she isn't a part of the club, but it looks like she'll be keeping an eye on Serafu throughout the series. Now this is a heartwarming series about a very clumsy girl coming into her own with the DIY club. It has funny characters and goofy yet touching moments that make this one of the most relaxing series to watch this season. Also, there are a lot of subtle details, like Serafu has 3 pets, a dog, a cat, and a pig. And when she takes a bath, the cat is not in there while the 2 others are. Then when her and her mom are eating pork, the pet pig is cowering in the corner, which is hilarious and a little messed up. I do believe everyone should make some time for this series, because it might turn out that this is the best seasonal show at the end of the season. But as of this moment, I do have some others that I rate higher. This one is not one of them. I don't think this one is bad at all. It's just that I feel this is more of a fan service show rather than a serious rom-com. And that is More Than a Married Couple, But Not Lovers. It's about a school that has students pair up as a married couple as a part of the curriculum. 2 students, Yakino Jiro and Watanabe Akari, both have someone they want to be paired with, but instead are paired with each other. Watanabe is a bossy, hard-headed girl, while Jiro is more shy and less outgoing, so their pairing leads to some difficult circumstances for them. However, there is a silver lining. The top 10 highest scoring students, who are considered the A-rank group, have the option to swap partners among themselves, with everyone's consent, that is. Watanabe wanted to be paired with Tenji Minami, a cool good-looking man, and Jiro wanted to be paired with his childhood friend Sakurazaka Shiori, who is a shy and timid girl, who coincidentally were paired with each other. But Watanabe and Jiro are desperate to get into the top 10, so they start acting like the perfect married couple, with both of them struggling in their own ways. Of course, this all accumulates to Watanabe asking for a goodbye kiss on the cheek, and Jiro, who was being rushed and bickered into leaving quickly, ended up planting a kiss right onto Watanabe's lips. This became the start of them slowly growing feelings for each other. I thought it was actually funny to watch Watanabe quickly lose her feelings for Minami and start to fall in love with Jiro. It's even more funny when we learn that Minami and Shiori are not doing so well themselves. While Jiro and Watanabe got to B rank in the first month, Minami and Jiro were in E rank. We learn the reason for that is Shiori is incredibly nervous around other guys who are not Jiro, so she's been putting distance between her and Minami. So if this keeps up, they will be able to switch partners at the end of the month. Also, like I mentioned earlier, this show has a lot more fan service compared to the other shows on this list. but it still has a funny and unique story. If you're interested, go ahead and watch it. It's just not one of the best shows this season. Next up on my list is I'm the Villainess, so I'm Taming the Final Boss. It's about a video game character who had awakened to the memories of her past life. She realized that she is the villainess of a dating sim, Eileen Lauren Dartrich, and she's being publicly rejected by the prince, Cedric Jean Elmer, and he's going to marry the game's heroine, Lilia Rainworth. Eileen, having recalled the memory of her previous life, decided in order to secure her life, she was going to marry the game's last boss, the demon lord Claude Jean Elmer, who yes, has the same last name as the crown prince because he is his older brother. This isn't a spoiler because we learned this very early on in the season. So Eileen went to the Demon Realm, which is right next to the capital, by the way, because the Demon Lord is the elder brother of the Crown Prince, and he was supposed to be the Crown Prince until his demon lineage was discovered. So he was given a small piece of land and a mansion in the woods next to the capital. Eileen made her way through the woods and reached the castle, where she ended up meeting Claude. Now he did frighten her a little bit, but she stood her ground, and without missing a beat, she proceeded to ask him to marry her. This surprised the Demon Lord, which caused a bolt of lightning to strike behind him. This scared Eileen so badly that she ended up fainting from fright. Fortunately, Claude wasn't mad. It's just his emotions warped the weather, like Beppa from Encanto. He was just surprised by her asking him to marry her out of nowhere. At this point, we get Eileen's backstory. And it turns out Prince Cedric proposed to her when they were like 9 years old. And since then, she's worked very hard to live up to the standard of being a queen. Due to her being the youngest with 3 very gifted older brothers, she felt inferior to them. That had made her to want to work even harder to become a proper queen. But this caused others to view her as arrogant and self-centered, so she became an outcast and had no one to turn to after Cedric called off the engagement. Also, there's the fact that when Claude awakens and becomes a true demon lord, he ends up killing her. So she wants to marry him in order to avoid that bad ending, and of course she's more than willing to go above and beyond to help him. Not simply to get him to like her, but also because she is a kind and caring person. This show is really well put together and came as a huge surprise to me. I was not expecting it to be this good. The show does an amazing job of displaying Eileen's and Claude's struggle with demons facing discrimination by humans, and Eileen being on the receiving end of Cedric's abuse. Which, by the way, Cedric being a cold-hearted, sadistic bastard was a real surprise. You would think him being the main love interest of the game would mean he's a kind and caring person, but apparently he's the type of person who would get angry seeing Eileen happy and over him, which makes it feel like he will do everything he can to hinder her and his older brother's happiness. Also, it's instantly foreshadowed that Lilia also awoke to her memories of her past life, and she's just acting sweet and innocent in order for her to live a life in luxury as the future queen. Now, nothing has been confirmed in the first few episodes, but it's been heavily implied and foreshadowed that it's hard not to think that. This is definitely one of the shows that I recommend not skipping from this season. Next up is actually my favorite from this season. Well, it's not the best. I have a couple more that I'm more excited to watch because I've been waiting for them for some time now. This one, however, is one that I didn't really have any expectations for, but I still placed it among the top of the season. And that series is Bocchi the Rock. It's about a girl named Hitori Goto who is an introvert. An introvert is someone who struggles to talk to people and they rather focus on their own inner thoughts rather than what's going on around them. However, Hitori doesn't enjoy being an introvert. She wants to be more social and make friends. One day while watching TV, she saw an up-and-coming band talk about how they used to be introverts. And being in a band is where they ended up shining. So Hitori started practicing to play the guitar in hopes of playing for her school one day. Then years went by and she never got the courage to play for anyone. All she could manage was to record covers of popular songs and upload them online under the name Guitar Hero. She was at least a popular cover artist with over 30,000 subscribers. She did try to get people to talk to her by bringing her guitar to school and dress kind of punk rockery. Well, she had a pink tracksuit and a bunch of armbands, but I guess that is kind of rock. Anyways, it didn't work. No one cared, so she went to just hang out by herself in a park and mull over her loneliness. Then a girl noticed she had a guitar and rushed over to ask her for a favor. She was hoping she could play for her band since their guitarist bailed on them last minute. The girl, Nijika Ichiji, didn't give Hitori a chance to respond and dragged her away. When they reached the spot, it was a dark place, which actually made Hitori more comfortable. She was nervous coming here, but she still forced herself to because she had always dreamed of doing a solo performance at Zepp Super Arena. And she felt like doing this performance would be her first step in achieving her dream. Then she met the other band member, Ryo Yamada. Hitori then showed them her skills by playing a song with them. And apparently she was horrible. The reason was not because she can't play guitar, it's actually because she's never played with other people. And due to her being shy and not focusing on the other members, she can't keep to the song's tone. After this, Hitori gave up on playing the guitar and proceeded to live out the rest of her life as a water flea. And that was the end of the series. I actually liked how short and sweet the series was. I kind of wish it had a more positive message about never giving up, but hey, sometimes it happens. Dude! What? You stopped watching after the credits again, didn't you? There was more after it? Oh, shoot. Okay, so after the credits, we see Hitori is hiding in the garbage bin, and the other members are trying to motivate her to come out by talking about this awesome guitarist they follow named Guitar Hero. They try to cheer her up by saying that there are normal people out there who can play guitar this well, so ordinary people like them can also do music together. That did cheer Hitori up a bit, because she is Guitar Hero, and hearing them say that she was awesome kind of cheered her up, but she still wasn't confident enough to go play on stage. So Ray gave her a box for her to hide in while she played. They then decided to come up with a nickname for her to use while she's on stage, and Ray came up with Bochi after Hitori Bochi, which means all alone. It being the first nickname she had received, Bochi really loved it. Then it's revealed that the band name is Kesoku Band, Kesoku meaning zip ties. They went on stage and performed pretty decently, but they all screwed up in one way or another. But they still had fun playing together, and Bochi swore that she was going to become brave enough to talk to other people. So this is an anime that really hits close to home for me. I won't deny I am a bit of an introvert myself, and I do struggle to talk to people. But I worked on it, and now I can hold conversations with others. Because of that, I can relate to Bochi and sympathize with her. That's not the only reason that I like the series. It's also because of how well her story is told. She started out as an introvert who sought to better herself by learning to play the guitar, and because of that, she is now playing in a band and practicing to talk to other people. So we slowly see her develop and grow into a social person, while simultaneously watching the band improve and grow as a unit. It's this type of calming and uplifting story that I really enjoy to watch. The music doesn't seem to be the center focus here, due to us not really hearing it, which is fine. I'd rather them not force bad music into the series, so this is one I would put near the top of the list, and I would say don't miss it. It has good animation, characters, and storytelling. You will definitely enjoy it. Last, and quite possibly the best of the season, Chainsaw Man. Now, as someone who has already read the manga, I can say this will be an insane anime. The story is about an orphan named Denji who works as a devil hunter for the mafia to pay off his father's debt to them. He met a chainsaw devil dog, whom he named Pochita. Unfortunately, the Yakuza leader sold him out to the zombie devil, who was after the chainsaw devil. Denji was brutally killed, chopped into pieces, and disposed of in a garbage bin. Fortunately, some of his blood dripped into Pochita's mouth, allowing him to come back to life and save Denji. As a result, Denji turned into the Chainsaw Devil. Well, technically he was actually possessed by it, but he still retained his human senses. He then proceeded to wipe out the zombie devil and all of the zombies it created. He then met a demon hunter by the name of Makima, who had offered him an opportunity to work as a devil hunter. He then proceeds to hunt devils in the name of the law, with the help of some new friends that he makes along the way. Now, a lot of this hype is coming from what I know happens in the manga, so it is a little biased, but from what I've seen from the first few episodes, this will probably be the best series coming out this season. There are some scenes that have been taken out or moved around, but I think it's to keep some things a secret for now. It doesn't hinder the story, so I'm not going to treat it as a negative decision. Then there's the animation, which I consider to be top tier. And of course, let's not forget about the fight scenes. Things are going to get really intense, and as long as they keep up the high quality animation and don't do anything that completely screws up the original story, then this will be considered among the top shows of the year, no doubt about that. Now I want to give a quick honorary mention. This series didn't come out during the fall season, it actually came out in the summer, but at the very end of it, it was such a last minute anime that I feel it needed to be included as a part of the fall lineup, and that would be Cyberpunk Edgerunner. Now, Edgerunner is a Netflix original series, so instead of airing the episodes on a weekly basis, they released them all at a single point. The show tells the story of David Martinez as he shows the life and struggles of someone living in Night City. The series does a really good job of depicting the inequality of a full capitalist regime, and how the separation of classes severely affected the city. Those on top are living like kings, and those beneath them are either run through the ringer or struggling to survive. Even those who are getting by decently have to do a little extra in order to help their own live a decent life. Like we see David's mother, Gloria Martinez, as she works her butt off in order to put her son through the Arasaka Academy in order for him to land a corporate job. We also see that she herself doesn't always do things the honest way. She steals a robotic spine called the Sandy Vista, which is a military-grade robotic upgrade for a person to attach a gauge supersonic movement speed. She tries to sell it, but before she gets the chance to, her and David are caught in the crossfire between a street gang and a corporate limousine, resulting with their car crashing and the trauma team, which is supposed to be medical personnel, blatantly ignoring them and only saving the person who has coverage with them. Stuff like this are typical in Night City, and if you played either the tabletop RPG or the video game, then you would have been aware of this already. However, going into this series, I wasn't expecting the level of world building they put into it. I don't want to spoil anything, but the show gives you more than enough details for you to understand how the world of Night City works. If you only have time to watch one series this season, season, that this is the one I would recommend above all others. It has the shortest watch time, while maintaining the same level of quality as the other shows I recommended in this video. And honestly, I think only Chainsaw Man and Bleach can compare to it. Speaking of Bleach, I will not talk about the return of the most anticipated anime of the year. The 1000-Year Blood War arc is the final arc from the Bleach manga, and potentially the most exciting one at that, due to its extensive world building and lore. However, there were a lot of scenes and moments, including the ending, that have received heavy criticism. So depending on what the anime does, this arc could make or break the Bleach franchise. As for the animation, it is absolutely gorgeous. It's on par with Chainsaw Man and even Cyberpunk as the best animation of the season. And honestly, it could surpass both of them as the best show of the season. No lie, I am a little biased towards Bleach because I love the series, and Bleach and Naruto were among the first animes, not including things like Yu-Gi-Oh!, Dragon Ball, and Pokemon, which frequently aired on multiple TV networks when I was a kid, that I had a heavy investment in watching. That does not mean take what I say with a grain of salt. There is a reason Bleach was a part of the big three. It is undeniable one of the best shonen series out there. Now, that doesn't mean you should watch this arc without seeing the rest of the series first. I personally recommend reading the manga. You can get a Shonen Jump subscription for like $3 a month, and the only catch is you're limited to 100 chapters a day. That's it. And even if you reach that limit, Bleach is like less than 700 chapters, so in a week you can get caught up. Then after, you can read One Piece if you haven't already. Okay, anyways, moving on to the next sequel, I'm going to talk about Mob Psycho 100 Season 3. Now, I have heard that the third season is going to be a down season because that is where the manga started to go bad. But you know what? I say as long as Reagan and Mob are still doing their silly old routine, then I will be happy, regardless of how boring or plain the series becomes. This show was a comedy before it was an action. Remember the events of the first season? A good majority of it was just jokes during intense life or death situations. Granted, the second season did have that, but that was only when Reagan was on screen. Even Mob had to get his serious moments in during that season. So Mob Psycho is another top tier sequel that is worth checking out in its entirety. And that is pretty much what I had for this season. Now, some shows that I didn't get around to watch, but I do plan on watching them in the future, would be Blue Lock, which is a sports anime about the Japanese national team looking for a high quality striker to carry them over the top. It's a sports anime, so it's bound to be good, but I prefer to binge watch sports anime so I don't have to wait a week to see the results of a single game. Then there is the remake of Urusei Yatsura, a romance comedy about a dude accidentally proposing to an alien. It kind of gives off a To Lover vibe with the comedy and fan service. The original did receive a lot of praise based on my research, so this is one I do want to check out later on. And finally, the new Gundam anime. For me, Gundam is a hit or miss. I either really like it or really hate it, so I kind of want to wait and see what others think about it before I jump into it. Currently, I have heard nothing but good things about it, so if you like mechs and politics, then this will be right up your alley. And that's going to be it for this one, folks. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know if there were any series from this season that I missed that are worth checking out, and I might make a video dedicated to it, if it turns out to be better than the ones I talked about here. Anyways, thanks again. I hope to see you in the next one, and remember, if it's multiple choice, just pick one letter and pick that as your answer for the whole final. You're guaranteed at least a 25%, maybe 50% depending on how the grading system works. Okay, for that one person who watched till the end hoping to get the answers to their finals, don't actually do that. You have this nifty little thing called a textbook, which has all the answers to your final. Read it and memorize as much of it as you can. Good luck to you, my friend, and remember to keep having fun. See ya!